Let's take a look at groups in GC Manage and what they're for, why you use them, and how to make them, and the various options that go along with them. As we've talked about before, groups are a convenient way to put a bunch of GrandCares together, forming perhaps one business unit of your organization. Maybe the group is the South Wing of your facility, or maybe it's the independent living GrandCares as opposed to the assisted living GrandCares, or maybe it's the hospice GrandCares, or in the case of private homes, maybe it's all the Cincinnati customers. Whatever it is, groups are a nice way to put all of those GrandCare systems together so that you can more easily staff and manage them and their settings. So let's talk about it. Let's go to groups over here in the primary navigation and take a look. Now here's our familiar list view of all the groups that you might have in your GrandCare world. And you could just click through and look at the group info of this group, and you can see that there's a notification email address and so on, and some other information that we'll talk about too. And you can also see who is the parent distributor for this group. And of course you could click through on that to look at the distributor as well. We'll talk about that elsewhere. Let's go back. And you can of course see that there is this add group button. Let's try it. Add group. And you can see some of these fields are required and others are not, but you should really be as thorough as you can when you create a group, as with anything in GC Manage, so that we'll make a Scott group. Now let's do something more realistic. Let's say that it's the assisted living group, and every group has to have a distributor, and so we'll give it a distributor, and the address is already populated for me, and all that good stuff. It's got a phone number. I'll give it an email address. And now we've got some fun stuff here. Group settings. So when a caregiver enters a care note, whether it's here in GC Manage or it's at the touchscreen, or your touchscreen user, your care recipient, fills out an assessment, maybe they do their heart health assessment, where do those things go? Who gets notified about those and when? Here's our options. Now we can choose not to get email notifications when those events occur. I don't recommend that. You can have it send that email notification just as soon as that care note or assessment is completed. But if you find that a little too tedious, you can have the group setting set for a daily email digest of any and all care notes and assessments, and that's one I think that a lot of people choose to use. Bear in mind though that you really might want to consider this immediate notification for some of these, because some care notes and assessments might contain really time-critical information, such as if I fill out my heart health assessment and I indicate on every question that I'm having some sort of medical crisis, you might want to be notified about that right away. It's up to you. You definitely want to be notified if a system is turned off in this group. You definitely want to check that, because otherwise you'd have to come into GC Manage and look through your list of accounts to see if any are off that should be on. This way you'll get an email notification when there's a system that is turned off. Now who gets notified about this? Well, whoever you say. I can just put my own email address in here. By the way, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, so check this out. Right here, these little blue question mark dots, if you click them, you get a little pop-up to help explain this particular element. And in this case, it tells me that it's a comma-separated list of email addresses, so that you can put multiple email addresses in here, separate them with commas, and now you can have a number of people get this email notification and not just one. And the same applies to these phone numbers down here that you might include. Comma-separated list. So I'll put this number in there, and I could add another There we go. Now here's some interesting settings here. Now this checkbox for sending wellness readings in alerts. Now this is important because some people would be concerned about the privacy implications of sending actual numbers. That is, your blood pressure reading is 120 over, 84 or whatever it is. Do you want that actual reading to be transmitted with the alert that might go out about it, right? So if somebody's blood pressure is too high or too low, of course you want to get notified about that, but do you feel okay about having those values put in the actual alert? And if you're okay with it in your area and you think it's okay to do, then you might check that. But if you don't feel like that's okay, then don't do that. So we've provided that option for you just based on your policies and privacy regulations in your area. Finally, there's this last option here, and we discussed this in the community module of this course, so I won't discuss it in great detail here, but this is where you would enable the check-in button for all the GrandCare accounts in this group. And for those who haven't looked at the community section yet or have forgotten, basically that's a button that's on screen that will replace the programmable button that you might otherwise configure in the care menu with one that just says check-in. And let's take a look at it just real quickly. Once you check this, you have a number of parameters to look at here. Most notably, the window of time that the check-in button will appear. Typically, you would have that in the morning hours so that all of the GrandCare touchscreen users in this group will have this window of opportunity to touch the check-in button to tell everyone that they are checking in and okay. And after that window of time is over, then you can have staff look through in GC Manage to look and see who has not checked in so that you can follow up on them and make sure that they're okay. For now, I'm going to leave that unchecked, and then I could just save my group. Here's the group that we just made, all the information that we added to it when we created it. And there's our parent distributor. And you can see down here that these graphs are empty, that there aren't any accounts or systems added to this group. So how do you add an account to a group? Well, you don't do it from here necessarily, although if you click the Accounts tab, you can see there aren't any. And there's this Add Account button, but that Add Account button is the same one that you see when you go to the Accounts page in the navigation. It's just to make a new account. And if you do make a new account, you do get asked, let's take a look here. If you do make a new account, the first thing you do is you select what group it's in. So that's how you do it when it's a new account. But what if it's not a new account? Let's go to Accounts and take a look at this one. Let's look at the Mary Smith account. That's an existing account. It's already here in GC Manage. How do we put it in our new group? So here's the summary page of this account. And if we go to the Details tab, you can see that there's this Transfer button down here at the bottom. So let's click the Transfer button. And it says right away, transfer Mary Smith to what group? This is the group right here, so we'll select it. It's the group we just made. Now doing this will take the Mary Smith account out of the group that it was in before, and it will now live in the assisted living group. Let's do that. So let's click the Transfer Account button. And we've done it. Account transferred to new group. So let's go back and look at our group and make sure it's worked. And it has. So 100% of our groups, 100% of our accounts in this group are active and up, and that would be just the one. So let's go ahead and look at the Accounts tab. There's the account in our group. And just for grins, let's look at the systems. What's a system? We'll talk about that in another video as well. So there's it. And that's it for groups.